Pups, and I'm back to give you book review number 2. Before I start, I just want to mention that all the books I am reviewing are from the school library, so you don't have to worry about buying the book or going to get a library card. This time I read 2 books instead of 1. I read The Fill-In Boyfriend by Cassie West and Unwind by Neil Shusterman. The main character of The Fill-In Boyfriend is Gia. At the beginning of this book, she is heading to her senior prom with her boyfriend Bradley so that her friends and her boyfriend can meet for the first time. When suddenly, out of nowhere, Bradley just breaks up with her. After Bradley breaks up with her and leaves, she sees a guy sitting in his car and she walks up to him and she asks him to go to her prom with her. Not only does she ask him to go to prom with her, but she asks him to pretend to be Bradley. Everything was going fine at the prom until Phil and Bradley's little sister, who didn't know what was going on, crashed what was going on. Luckily, Phil and Bradley was able to change the situation and end the night without Gia's friends knowing. But this wasn't the end, because Gia could not get this guy out of her mind. She didn't know his name. All she knew is that his little sister, which she didn't recognize at the prom, went to her school. And then a little bit later, the younger sister of Phil and Bradley approaches Gia and says that he needs the favor returned for what he did at her prom. So that is the very beginning of the story. I would give this book an 8.6 out of 10. There were some really parts that are really funny and I really enjoyed in this book. And this book is a reread I read, so usually when I do rereads, I don't like the book as much, but I still really enjoyed it. My favorite character is Beck, which is Phil and Bradley's little sister. And my favorite quote is, "Well, if you're a mess, then I'm a natural disaster. The cutest natural disaster that I've seen." The next book I read was Unwind. Unwind is a book about a futuristic America where there was a Second World War about abortion. Well, in this futuristic America, they came up with a solution called unwinding. Unwinding is what happens to teens from 13 until they turn 18, which is an adult. And what they do is they sign these papers and they send their kids off to these harvest camps where their whole body is taken apart and every single part of them is used in another person. People believe that because these organs were in other people and their skin and their eyes and all their other functions of their body were in other people, that the person was still alive, so it wasn't abortion, yet they didn't have to deal with the child anymore. In this book, the point of view changes a lot, but it's not very hard to follow because it tells you at the beginning of the chapter whose point of view you're reading from. In this book, there's 3 main characters, Connor, Riza, and Lev. Connor is a 6-year-old boy who tends to get in trouble a lot. Not that he tries, it just tends to happen. And his parents decide that they don't like how he gets in trouble a lot and they sign the orders to have him unwound. Riza is also 16, but she is known as something as a ward of the state, so she's basically an orphan. Riza is one day pulled out of class and they tell her that she's going to be unwound because her grades aren't the best. She chose a very competitive field of study and they needed more money for the other kids who were also wards of the state. Lev is 13 and he's known as something as a tithe. A tithe is someone who is born to a religious family who is born with the intent of being unwound, or as I see it, sacrificed. So when Connor finds out that he's being sent to be unwound, he tries to make an escape before the day he's going to be taken in to be unwound. He made it all the way to a trucker stop and he hitched a ride with a trucker. But what Connor forgot was to take off his cell phone and throw it away so that he can't be tracked, which was how he was caught. Riza, right after her meeting where she was told she was going to be unwound, was put on a bus, and that bus happened to be on the highway and Connor was causing some trouble, so the bus was stopped and she jumped off. Lev also happened to be on the same highway on his way to his tithing ceremony that day. As Connor was trying to make his getaway off the semi-truck, Riza had jumped off the bus, and Connor had also known that there was nowhere he could go, so he grabbed Lev as a hostage, also knowing he was a tithe and was going to be unwound, so in a way he thought he was saving Lev. In the moment, Lev was tranked. Riza helped Connor get away, and they all 3 escaped together. And the story follows along on how they escaped and their journey on trying to survive until 18 so they can't be unwound. So that was the very beginning of the book. I would give this book a 9 out of 3, just because it's such an interesting concept that I have never heard of before and intrigued me so much. My favorite character was Connor. He tended to have a really good point of view about a lot of the things, even though he tended to get in trouble, but it's because he was just so overwhelmed with a lot of things that he didn't know what to do and he'd freak out. But other than that, Connor was a really good person and I really enjoyed his character. And my favorite quote was, "In a perfect world, everybody would know what's black and white, right and wrong, and everyone would know the difference. But this isn't a perfect world. The problem is the people who think it is." I also wanted to mention that you could read this book as a standalone, or you can continue reading it in its series, which I didn't know, so I'm really excited to continue reading the series. So that was my book review, and I'll see you guys next time.